Discover the incredible truth, the most desired Duke's shocking honeymoon revelation exposed. Sarah stood behind the counter, the smell of coffee and freshly cooked bacon thick in the air. The sun filtered through the window, creating a warm glow around the familiar faces that filled the Maplewood Diner. But today felt different. Today, everything was about to change. Just as she placed a plate of burgers in front of Mr. Johnson, the bell chimed above the door, and in walked a stranger who looked like he had stepped straight out of a storybook. Henry, the new Duke, with his charming smile and approachable demeanor, blended into the rustic diner like a fresh beginning. Sarah couldn't help but feel her heart race. Those deep blue eyes didn't belong in her small town, they belonged in the pages of fairy tales. As he took a seat, the chatter around her quieted. She approached with a smile, trying to steady her fluttering heartbeat. "What can I get you?" "Coffee, please," he replied, a hint of intrigue in his voice. "And maybe, one of those burgers?" As she poured his coffee, their eyes locked. Sarah felt a connection as if an invisible string tied their fates together. She knew he came from a world far removed from hers. Aristocracy and abundance contrasted sharply with her blue-collar struggles. But his warm laugh and genuine interest in the townsfolk made her want to know him more. In the days that followed, conversations turned into stolen glances. Their laughter echoed off the diner walls, lifting Sarah from her worries about supporting her family. She dreamed of baking pastries in her own bakery once they broke free from life's grind. But then, whispers began. The townspeople eyed Henry with skepticism. "Just another spoiled rich kid," they muttered. One evening, tension erupted like a summer storm as Sarah overheard her regulars discussing how Henry's family ignored the needs of the community. She felt her heart sink as they questioned her loyalty. "How could you be with him?" One woman scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. Sarah felt torn. Here was a man who, beneath the polished surface, yearned for connection, yet his title cast a shadow over everything. Could she trust him? Each interaction between them became a tightrope walk, with love and loyalty pushing against reality's harsh truths. Before she could fully process her feelings, the town hall meeting arrived, thick with anticipation. Sarah sat by Henry, tension palpable in the air. He stood, visibly nervous, but determined. As he began to share his family's struggles, the room fell silent. Hearts pounded. Would they finally see him for who he truly was? "Behind our wealth, we've faced struggles that you wouldn't believe." His voice wavered, but determination held him steady. As his truth spilled out, eyes widened and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Just then, the atmosphere shifted. Doubt and fear clashed with hope and empathy. Sarah's pulse quickened. She locked eyes with Henry, they shared a moment that felt seismic. This was at the crossroads. Will the community rally behind them, or would the rift grow wider? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The murmurs turned into whispered accusations. Sarah's chest tightened. Would she dare stand by Henry? Or retreat into the safety of her old life? She faced a heart-wrenching decision, one that threatened to tear her apart. Desperation clawed at her throat. She loved him, but was love enough to bridge the gap? The air thrummed with uncertainty, and the crowd's eyes filled with judgment settled on Sarah. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. What would she choose? Sarah stared at Henry, her heart pounding like a drum. The weight of the townsfolk's scrutiny pressed down on her like a heavy cloak. She could feel their impatience, a wave of judgment washing over her. She became acutely aware of how shallow her breaths had become. Henry stood tall, his brow knitted with determination, an anchor in the storm. He was everything she wanted, yet here they were, surrounded by doubt and fear. The room pulsated with tension, and Sarah could almost hear the collective heartbeat of the crowd. She felt the pull of loyalty to her community, but an even stronger urge tugged at her heart, a deep connection to this man. "Tell them the truth, Henry," she finally whispered, gathering her courage. The words felt sticky and sweet, like honey, heavy with meaning. Henry glanced at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. Encouragement shone in her eyes, and for just a moment, the weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. The murmur subsided, an awkward silence hanging in the air as he shifted his focus back to the audience. "I know my family has a reputation around here. But I am not just my title. I'm a person who has seen things that are hard to bear," Henry continued, leaning forward toward the crowd. "I don't come here to impose or act superior, I come here to understand, to connect." His voice softened, deepening with emotion. The crowd shifted, caught in the spell of his sincerity. "As a child, I faced challenges. Expectations piled high and mountains of tradition that felt impossible to climb. I want nothing more than to make a difference, to be a part of the community, just like you." Sarah watched as the expressions of doubt began to break, crack by crack. She felt a flicker of hope. Would they really see him now? The woman who had questioned her loyalty earlier stood up, arms crossed tightly. "You expect us to believe that you truly care? What has your family ever done for us?" Henry looked directly at her, unwavering. "I'm not here to talk about my family. What I want to know is how I can help. I'm here for community projects, youth programs, anything that can bring us together." That was it. He grounded his noble title in everyday connectivity. In the silence that followed, murmurs circulated, some doubtful, others contemplative. But a voice rose from the back, an older gentleman with silver hair. "I knew your father. He never lifted a finger for us during tough times." "Perhaps, but I'm not my father," Henry replied, his voice steady. "I intend to be part of Maplewood. And I'm asking for your help. What do you need most?" That question hung in the air, full of potential. It felt like a tiny flame igniting a larger fire within the room. Hope flickered again, this time spreading through the crowd as conversations bubbled up in hushed tones. Sarah felt her heart ease, swelling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Could this be the turning point? Slowly, she squeezed Henry's hand under the table, willing him to remain strong. The weight of her decision felt lighter, life felt a little more hopeful, but then, out of nowhere, a loud crash broke the fragile atmosphere. A figure stumbled into the room, wild-eyed and panicked. "You need to get out now. There's been an accident." The room erupted into confusion. Faces twisted in alarm, and Sarah's heart dropped. What could be happening? She glanced at Henry, questions flooding her mind. Suddenly, everything they had worked toward felt on the edge of collapse. Would the town see him now for who he really was? Or would it all be overshadowed by chaos? As they stood to face whatever was coming together, an urgent thought raced through her mind: would they still have a chance? The air crackled with tension as the figure gasped for breath. "There's been a horrible accident at the docks. A shipping container has toppled over, people are trapped." The words landed like stones, heavy and devastating. Shock rippled through the audience. Conversations ceased, replaced by gasps and frantic whispers. Sarah's heart raced, the faces around her blurring into a whirl of concern and fear. She glanced at Henry, who had gone pale but remained steady, his eyes darting about, assessing the crowd's reaction. Without hesitation, he took a step forward. "We need to organize a rescue." His voice cut through the chaos. "Sarah, come with me." She followed him to the front of the crowd, the urgency of the moment pushing her fears aside. "How can we help?" she shouted, rallying the townsfolk. "We're stronger together." "Right." Henry agreed, turning back to the crowd. "We'll need volunteers. Call anyone you can." The local fire department and police need all hands on deck. Slowly, people began to spring into action, a mix of panic and determination evident on their faces. A few rushed toward the exits, while others grabbed their phones, dialing for help. Sarah's heart swelled with admiration. In that moment, the bravery Henry showed ignited sparks of courage in the crowd, transforming fear into resolve. As chaos erupted, they began coordinating efforts. Sarah glanced at the door, where a few townsfolk stood frozen, unsure what to do. "We can't waste time. Come on," she urged, drawing on her memories of community service back in school. The scattered pockets of familiarity helped her find her footing. Even in the storm, Henry turned to her. "You're incredible, Sarah." But his gaze shifted back to the gathering crowd, a fire lighting within him. "Let us split into teams. I'll organize those who can drive." He gestured to the parking lot full of cars, "and you coordinate those who can help carry people from the docks." Without another word, they fell into their roles effortlessly, the tension of the community meeting forgotten as adrenaline took over. With Henry by her side, Sarah felt like they were running against time, side by side yet connected in purpose. Minutes felt like hours as they organized the rescue efforts. One group was tasked with calling emergency services while another packed supplies: blankets, water, first aid kits in case they found any survivors. Their voices rang like chimes amid the chaos, directives flew back and forth. For Sarah, the urgency dulled her anxiety and gave way to a greater sense of community, her heart swelling with pride at what they could achieve together. But just as they started to make strides toward the docks, another wave of panic rolled through as sirens wailed in the distance. A familiar voice broke through the crowd. "Where's my daughter? You have to find her." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the frantic mother from the back of the room. Reality hit her hard. Lives were truly at stake, and the fate of that girl weighed heavily on her heart. "Henry, we need to find her," Sarah shouted, her voice trembling with fear. He turned to her, unwavering. "We will. We'll search together." His eyes glinted with determination, a promise lingering in the air. The urgency shifted as Sarah experienced a myriad of emotions: fear, hope, and an overwhelming need to help. They raced together through the exits toward the docks, where chaos reigned. As they approached the scene of the accident, she felt a shift in the atmosphere. They were on the brink of something monumental, but what awaited them could change everything. Would they be too late? Would they find the girl? The answers hung heavily in the air, just out of reach. And as they neared the docks, a noise echoed from beneath the rubble, a soft, muffled cry. Sarah's heart stopped. What would they uncover next? The muffled cry sent a jolt of adrenaline through Sarah. She exchanged a quick look with Henry. They both felt the weight of urgency pushing them forward. Together, they scrambled over the strewn debris and jagged metal, their focus narrowing to the faint sound beneath the wreckage. "Can you hear that?" Henry asked, breathlessly. "Yes. It's coming from over there." Sarah pointed toward a section of the container that had crumpled down at an awkward angle, revealing just enough space for someone to be trapped inside. "Stay close," he urged, as he started to make his way toward the sound. Sarah followed, her heart pounding wildly. Each step brought them closer to the source of the cry, mixed with the dread boiling in the pit of her stomach. Would it be too late? They reached the spot and nestled close to the ground. "Hello," Henry shouted, his voice echoing in the hollow space. "Can you hear us? We're here to help. Can you tell us your name?" "Emma." "Mom." The response came through, weak and small but full of unmistakable desperation. "Emma. We're coming." Sarah shouted back, feeling a rush of relief but not losing focus. She could barely believe they might actually find this girl. "Can you move? Are you hurt?" Henry called, trying to assess the situation. "It's dark. I can't see," Emma cried, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. "Hold on, Emma. We'll get you out," Sarah assured her, though her gut tightened with uncertainty about how that would actually happen. They exchanged quick glances, a shared understanding passing between them. They had to work fast. Henry started to assess the clutter around them, searching for a way to safely clear the debris. "Stay calm, Emma. We're going to move some things, but we need you to be very still." Sarah leaned into the wreckage, feeling its cool, rough texture against her hands. "We've got you, Emma," she reassured, her voice steady even as doubt crept in. With each movement, she felt the surroundings press closer. The air was heavy, filled with dust and silence, the chaos outside fading into the background. They worked in tandem, pulling aside chunks of metal and wood, careful not to cause further harm. "I can hear you," Emma called again, her small voice fragile but alive with hope. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes at the sound. Just as Henry shifted a particularly heavy beam, the ground beneath them trembled. Sarah gasped as a cascade of dust and debris tumbled down. "Henry, be careful," she shouted, scrambling back. "I've got it," he reassured her as he steadied himself. With focused determination, they resumed their work, driven by the knowledge that every second mattered. Slowly, more of the space opened. Then, in a moment that shifted time itself, Henry reached inside and clenched a small hand. "I've got her." He strained as he urged gently, "Hold on tight, Emma." "Mom!" Emma called out, her voice now a mix of fear and relief. The moment swelled in intensity, adrenaline electrified the air around them. "Sarah, pull her up," Henry shouted, his face taut with effort. With a burst of energy, Sarah reached in, sliding her arms beneath the girl, panic turned into fierce determination. She grasped Emma tightly and, together with Henry, they pulled her free from the rubble. Emma emerged, her face streaked with dirt and fear, but alive. Sarah's heart swelled at the sight, only to be immediately dampened by the sound of more sirens approaching, a reminder of the chaos still unfolding around them. "Your mom is looking for you," Sarah gasped, holding the girl close. But just as they pulled Emma from the wreckage, a loud crash echoed from deeper in the rubble. The shadows loomed larger, and uncertainty gripped Sarah once again. What else lay hidden in the debris? What if the worst was yet to come? The chaos wasn't over yet. Emma's small frame shook in Sarah's arms, and the echoes of distant sirens mixed jaggedly with the girl's ragged breaths. Henry turned back toward the rubble, his expression a mix of determination and dread. "We need to move the rest of this debris, now," he said, his tone urgent. Sarah nodded, cradling Emma close, the girl's racing heart beating against her own. "It's going to be okay, Emma. We're right here," she whispered, stroking the girl's hair, trying to provide some comfort. The dust was thick, and every breath tasted gritty. Henry pushed against a larger piece of metal but quickly realized it wouldn't budge. He shifted to another side, determination etched on his face. "Help me lift this," he snapped, adrenaline pushing him through the fear. Together, they strained against the weight of the metal, muscles taut, sweat pooling at their temples. The air was electric, full of promise and tension. There was more than just the physical strain. Time felt suspended, each second stretched thin by the pressure of both hope and fear. Suddenly, a deep cracking sound filled the air, and Sarah froze. "Henry, it's shifting," she shouted, adrenaline twisting her stomach. "Hold on," he yelled back, focusing all of his effort into stabilizing the beam. But the sound only grew louder, and Sarah instinctively pulled Emma closer, shielding her from the unseen danger. Then, just as Henry pushed with one final surge of strength, the beam rolled away, revealing not just a clearer path, but something much darker lying beyond. Shadows billowed out, grainy and unsettling. "It's not over," Henry breathed, glancing at Sarah with wide eyes. They both knew what that meant: more tangled wreckage, more lives possibly at stake. "Let us go," Sarah said, pushing fear aside. She couldn't let it paralyze her. There was still so much uncertainty as she crawled deeper into the wreckage with Henry, Emma clinging to her side. The sounds around them were shifting, the creaks of settling debris, muffled cries from elsewhere. Each sound echoed like a heartbeat, creating a rhythm of hope and despair. Emma looked up at Sarah, her eyes wide with both fear and trust. "Is my mom in there?" she asked softly, her voice almost lost in the chaos. "I'm sure she's looking for you, Emma." "We'll find her," Sarah assured her, holding on to that flicker of hope as they ventured further into the dim light. But the path was treacherous. As they crawled, Sarah noticed the fragments of broken lives scattered around them. Pictures, toys, remnants of what was once routine and safe. It hit her hard, a wave of pain washing over the responsibility of what they had to face. "Stay close to me," she urged Emma gently, feeling the weight of the girl's fear tugging at her heart. Just then, a scream cut through the air, haunted, desperate, and close. It sent ice racing down Sarah's spine. "Did you hear that?" Henry's face was pale, and for a moment, they both froze, thoughts racing. What if they weren't just trying to save Emma anymore? What if there were others who needed them? They looked at each other, air mingling with resolve. "We need to help," Henry said firmly, and Sarah swallowed hard, nodding. "Let us move." They pushed deeper into the wreckage, driven by urgency and the ghosts of those still trapped beyond their view. A desperate instinct gripped them as they prepared for whatever might come next. Behind them, the sirens wailed louder, mingling with the cries of the lost. The chaos was expanding, and they were right in its path. What awaited them in the darkness? And who else might they find inside? The air was thick with dust and despair as Sarah, Henry, and Emma crawled further into the remnants of crushed lives. Each movement challenged their sense of safety. The oppressive quiet was occasionally shattered by distant wails, ghostly reminders of desperation echoing through the rubble. "Keep talking to me, Emma," Sarah urged, adjusting her grip on the girl. "Tell me about your mom." Emma swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "She likes to bake cookies. Chocolate chip, lots of chocolate." The words came out in gasps, like pictures of happier times spilling forth even in the darkest moment. "That sounds amazing," Sarah replied, forcing a smile, hoping to light something in Emma's eyes. "I bet she makes the best cookies in the world." But as they pressed on, Sarah's heart felt heavier. Each toy they passed, each photo half buried in the debris, was a reminder of what was lost. How many stories had been interrupted? Henry glanced at the shadows that lingered beneath the broken beams. "I'm not sure how much more we can go," he admitted, his voice low but steady. "We have to find a way to call for help if we can." Suddenly, another cry drifted through the air, louder this time. It reverberated against the walls of their surroundings and forced them to pause, dread pooling in their stomachs. "Did you hear that?" Emma whispered, fear creeping back into her voice. "Yeah," Henry said, eyes narrowing as he scanned the debris. "We need to find out where it came from." In the distance, a faint glow cut through the shadows. It flickered like the flame of hope, and without thinking, they made their way toward it. The closer they got, the clearer that scream became, this one, a deeply mournful call. "Over there." Henry pointed to a section of rubble that had partially collapsed but had a slight opening. "Emma, can you stay close?" Sarah's voice was soothing but urgent. "Let us see if we can find someone who needs us." Together, they maneuvered through the gaps. Where light spilled out so brightly, they could only hope it led to someone alive. They squeezed through, and the scene that unfolded before them pulled at their hearts. A woman was trapped beneath a fallen beam, her tear-streaked face illuminated by the glow. "Oh, God help me!" she cried, a mix of panic and pain. Paralyzed from the waist down, she was struggling against the weight pressing on her. "Stay calm, we're here," Henry called out, rushing forward. "We'll get you free." But Sarah hesitated, her body instinctively recoiling at the sight. This is too heavy, she whispered, fear creeping in once more. What if it falls again? Behind her, Emma squeezed her hand, her tiny grip breaking through Sarah's doubt. We can't leave her, the girl pleaded, her eyes wide and trusting. We can't. In that moment, Sarah felt both the weight of the world on her shoulders and the fragile thread of hope pulling her forward. If they didn't help, who would? Okay, she whispered, swallowing the panic. We're going to do this, together. As they positioned themselves, ready to lift, Sarah looked into the woman's eyes, seeing not just a stranger but a reflection of every lost soul around them. On 3, we lift, Henry instructed, his voice steady. The world outside continued to crumble, the siren still wailed, yet here, in this moment, they were everything the trapped woman had, and they were going to fight with everything they had, but just as they began to lift, a sudden crash echoed through the air above them. Look out! The noise reverberated, sending tremors through the ground. What else would they lose? And who else would they have to save in this race against time? Sarah's heart raced as the sound of crumbling debris echoed like thunder around them. Time slowed, each second stretching into eternity as horror filled the air. Stay back! She yelled, pulling Emma closer just as a piece of rubble fell dangerously close, creating a cloud of dust that enveloped them. Henry instinctively shielded the woman, straining against the beam pinning her down. His face twisted with determination. We can't stop now. He shouted, adrenaline pumping through him. He looked at the trapped woman, her face pale yet filled with a flicker of hope that shimmered through her pain. Hold on, he said, voice firm as he steadied his stance. We'll lift you out. Just keep breathing. Sarah's instinct screamed at her to turn away, but she couldn't. She could feel the weight of Emma's gaze on her. The girl was watching, trusting in her. Sarah inhaled deeply, attempting to quiet the chaos inside her mind. If they didn't act, if they didn't try. Okay, Emma, she said, her voice calm but strong. We're going to help her. But I need you to listen carefully. When we lift, I want you to stay behind me, away from any falling debris. Promise? Emma nodded, fear mingling with resolve in her eyes. I promise. On 3. Henry called again. Counting down felt like marching toward an unknown end. 1, 2, 3. They heaved. The beam shifted slightly, the woman gasping as hope surged through her. It was working. Heart pounding in rhythm with their effort, Sarah pushed beyond her limits, pouring everything she had into that lift. The ground beneath them trembled under the weight of their fear and determination. Suddenly, an edge of the beam began to slip. No! Sarah yelled, panic flooding through her. Henry shouted, hold it. Don't let go. They adjusted their grip, muscles straining, hearts racing. A small crack echoed through the rubble above them as more debris shifted. The world outside pulsed with ominous noise, but here, all that existed was the fragile life they were trying to save. Come on. Just a little more. Henry encouraged. The woman's face twisted with the effort of her own struggles, but she didn't look away. That connection, the silent agreement of survival, held them together. Finally, the beam lifted high enough for the woman to barely wriggle her legs out. As soon as she was freed, she gasped. Thank you, oh, thank you. But the moment of relief shattered as the room around them began to tremble violently. Dust swirled in the air, obscuring everything. The weight of impending doom pressed against them. Get out! Sarah urged, her voice breaking through the haze. In a frenzy, they began to dart away from the wreckage. Henry offered his hand to the woman, who still struggled to crawl away. Emma grabbed Sarah's hand tightly. We can't leave her. Emma, we have to go now. Sarah's voice had an edge of fear. With a final glance back, Henry made a choice, shouting, you go. We'll get her out. No. Sarah shouted, a surge of panic overwhelming her. The next crash resonated as their worlds teetered on the edge of oblivion. Follow me. Henry's command rang loud as he pulled the woman toward safety. But did they have time? Could they all escape this crumbling fate? Just then, a sharp creak echoed, and Sarah's eyes widened. More above them cracked a danger they hadn't anticipated. Hold on tight. Henry yelled back, racing against the clock. Would they make it out alive, or was this where their journey ended? Sarah's breath came in quick gasps, her heart pounding as dread tugged at her insides. They were moving, but the crumbling structure was relentless, and the air felt heavy with the threat of falling debris. Panic settled into the crevices of her mind as she fought the urge to look back. Could Henry and the woman really make it? Stay close, Emma. She shouted, pulling the girl tighter to her side. Chunk after chunk of debris tumbled from above, sending shards of plaster and brick scattering across the floor. The dust hung in the air like a thick curtain, clouding her vision and wrapping her in a cocoon of fear, but then she heard it. A muffled scream from behind. The sound sliced through the chaos, a high-pitched wail that made Sarah's stomach drop. Henry! She yelled, spinning around despite every instinct telling her to flee. Emma clutched her leg, wide-eyed with worry. Henry was still there, but the woman he had just freed was now trapped beneath another collapsing beam. The weight of new rubble had come crashing down, sealing her in with a terrifying finality. Henry's face was taut, his jaw clenched with resolve. Get out of here! He shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. No! We can't leave her. Sarah's heart clenched. Something inside her rebelled against that notion. They had just saved the woman from one trap, only for her to be snared in another. It wasn't right to just run away. Sarah! Henry's urgency pulled her back. We can't, but Sarah was already moving toward them, her feet pounding against the debris. I'm not leaving her behind. She dropped to her knees, feeling the heat radiate from the trapped woman's body. Help me lift it. She cried out. The beam shifted ominously, but in that moment, she felt a spark of purpose. With the strength born of sheer resolve, she began to heave. Henry joined her, a look of disbelief crossing his face, but determination quickly replaced it. Together they pushed against the weight, each muscle in their bodies screaming in protest. Just a little more. Sarah urged, sweat trickling down her brow. For a fleeting moment, she could feel the warmth of hope. But just as hope began to blossom, the structure above them settled with a resounding crack. A horrifying sound, like an ominous promise of disaster. Move! Henry yelled, and Sarah's instincts kicked in. She pulled Emma with her, away from the danger that loomed, tears in her eyes for the woman they might leave behind. It was too much choice and too many lives hanging in the balance. Henry! She cried, fear clawing at her throat as she darted back, unwilling to abandon them. But just then, the ground shook violently. The walls groaned like waking giants, threatening to swallow them whole. Dust poured from the ceiling like rain, blinding them, suffocating them in its relentless grip. We have to leave now. Henry grasped Sarah's arm, desperation fueling his pull as he glanced back helplessly. The woman's anguished eyes met Sarah's. It was an unspoken plea. A bond forged in terror. But a gust of wind, unnatural and fierce, swept through the cracks, knocking Sarah off her feet. The world spun, the sounds of falling debris blurring together in a cacophony of fear. Emma! Hold on to me! She screamed, trying to find her footing in the chaos. Just as she grasped for the girl, another crash resounded, and time seemed to freeze. Everything felt so surreal, like a nightmare that deeply rooted in the pit of her stomach. Then, in a heartbeat, the dust settled, and silence flickered like a candlelight. Did we make it? Emma whispered, her voice trembling as she pressed close to Sarah. Sarah's heart sank. She couldn't answer that. She felt the weight of uncertainty settle against her chest. Did they make it? Would they ever find safety? As she looked back at Henry, a sinking realization washed over her. Their choices had led them here, but what would they sacrifice next? Would they go back to save anyone else, even risking their own lives? Just then, in the quiet that followed the storm, a familiar sound broke through the faint sound of another collapsing structure in the distance. What was that? Emma breathed out, eyes wide in disbelief. Sarah's heart sank further. I don't know, but we have to find out before it's too late. And that uncertainty loomed, heavy and terrifying, like a shadow waiting to swallow them whole. The dust settled slowly, but the tension in the air remained electric. Sarah's eyes darted through the haze, desperately searching for any sign of safety. The sound of crumbling concrete echoed in her ears, a constant reminder that they weren't out of danger yet. Sarah, we need to keep moving. Henry urged, his voice steady, yet laced with urgency. I can't just leave. She insisted, even as doubt crept into her mind. Was it too late for them? Emma's small hand squeezed hers tighter, the girl's innocent fear crushing Sarah's resolve. Mommy, where's that lady? Emma asked, her voice small and trembling. I don't know, sweetheart. But we need to stick together, Sarah replied, forcing a calmness she didn't feel. She looked to Henry, who nodded firmly. We find shelter, he stated, scanning the surroundings. Then we regroup. There could be more people needing help, and we can't do anything if we're buried too. The weight of his logic tugged at her heart. But what about the woman? Would they really leave her behind? Sarah turned back for one fleeting glance, the haunting image of the woman's pleading face locked in her mind. Just a little further Henry started leading the way. They stepped gingerly over broken concrete and fallen beams, each sound sending shivers of fear through Sarah. At any moment, the building could betray them again. As they maneuvered through the wreckage, Sarah felt a flicker of determination burning deep within her. If they made it out, she would come back. She had to. Look! Emma pointed ahead, her eyes lighting up with a spark of hope. Is that a door? Sarah squinted through the dust. Indeed, there appeared to be a warped and battered doorway partially open, light spilling through the gap like a beacon. In that moment, it felt like the universe had whispered a promise. Let us go. Henry urged, quickening his pace. They hurried toward the door, the faint glow bathing their faces in warmth. Each step sent echoes across the debris-strewn floor. Sarah could feel the ground tremble beneath her, but they couldn't stop now. They couldn't turn back. When they reached the door, Sarah hesitated only for a moment, feeling the cool metal beneath her fingertips. This was it. Their lifeline. She pushed it open with all her might, the door groaning as it swung inward. Sunlight poured over them, illuminating the chaos of destruction left behind, but also their path to freedom. The outside air was fresh, tinged with the metallic scent of ash and earth. As they stepped out, relief washed over her like a wave, but her relief was short-lived. Sarah's gaze instantly fell to the street where everything seemed to be chaos. People were running, some screaming, others crying out for help. This was not the haven she had envisioned. Where are we? Emma asked, looking even more frightened. I don't know, Sarah whispered, her heart racing. The world beyond the door was a battlefield of uncertainty, a stark contrast to the fragile hope they had just found. She turned to Henry, eyes wide with fear and determination. What do we do now? We need to find a safe place and gather resources. We can't just stand here, Henry replied, scanning the crowd. Okay, but Sarah hesitated, remembering the woman. What about the others? Henry's face hardened, but in that moment, they both knew the hard choice that lay ahead. They couldn't save everyone. As uncertainty filled the space between them, a sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath their feet, and screams echoed in the distance. Go! Henry shouted above the noise, gripping Sarah's arm. With fear propelling them forward, they plunged into the chaos, hearts pounding. But in that tumult, Sarah made a silent promise. If there was a chance to help even one more person, she would take it. Even if it cost them dearly. They pressed on through the madness, each step weighed down with questions. What awaited them in the depths of this destruction? Could they find others in need, or would they falter under the enormity of the crisis? The sight of disaster loomed ahead, waiting in the shadows to test their resolve. Once more. As they rushed into the chaotic street, Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Confusion swirled around her. People scurried like startled ants, faces marked by panic and despair. But amid the madness, there was a resilience. A desire to help, to connect, pulsing through the crowd. "Henry!" Sarah shouted, attempting to cut through the noise. "We need to regroup. Where do we start?" He searched the scene, eyes scanning frantic faces. "Over there." He pointed towards a small group of townsfolk huddled near a fallen tree. "They look like they're helping someone." Without hesitation, they rushed over, adrenaline fueling their strides. As they approached, a young man stood with a woman cradled in his arms, her ankle twisted at an unnatural angle. "We need more hands," he yelled, urgency pitching his voice higher. "Let us get her to that ambulance," Henry said, already bending down to assist. Sarah felt a surge of determination. She couldn't hold back now, this was the moment to show what they could do together. "Okay, I'll help you support her," Sarah declared, stepping forward. It felt right, like finally finding her place amidst the chaos. She slid under the girl's other arm, feeling the warmth of her body and the weight of shared struggle. Together, they lifted her, hearts unified in purpose. Thank you." The woman groaned, tears spilling as they moved her. With each step toward the ambulance, Sarah felt her fears diminish. Every life they affected, every moment of connection reinforced her belief in community. It was more than just helping a stranger, it was about showing everyone that they were not alone. As they laid the injured woman down, Sarah glanced at Henry. His eyes were bright with a fierce love for their town, a commitment that transcended his title. "You're incredible," he breathed, pride bursting through his words. She smiled back, their resolve evident in the shared glances. The hurt was still swirling all around, but they were making a difference. "And we're not stopping here. There's more to do." In that moment, Sarah saw change. The townsfolk were banding together, shaking off the weight of skepticism. Instead of whispers of doubt, she heard encouragement, people rallying to each other. "You can do it just a bit further. This way, we need help here." Their fears became ripples of hope, expanding outward, a force that turned despair into action. Amidst this chaos, former critics were standing shoulder to shoulder with Henry, working to triage the injured, gathering supplies, and bringing light into their darkened world. A figure caught her eye. The woman from earlier, the one they had tried to free, wearing a bandage around her forehead, was directing others. "We need to set up shelter over here. Everyone, we need people organizing. Look." Emma pointed toward the corner where a little boy cried, lost and wide-eyed. "He needs help." Sarah's heart swelled while fear gripped at the corners of her mind. "Let us go," she yelled, rushing forward, with Henry and Emma in tow. They approached, and as they did, the boy's face lit with tentative hope. "Are you my friends?" he asked, his voice quivering. "Always." Sarah knelt down, pulling him close and shielding him from the chaos. Henry crouched beside them. "We're here for you. We'll keep you safe. Can you tell us where your family is?" He sniffled, pointing toward a building shrouded in dust. "My mom. She was over there before everything fell." Heart pounding, Sarah glanced at Henry. They both understood the undeniable pull of responsibility swirling around them. The sense of urgency surged anew. "We have to go find her," Sarah said, determination igniting her spirit. Together, they stepped into the uncertainty swirling around the town. But now they had a mission. It wasn't just about titles or status, it was about deep connections to each other. This was family. This was community, racing towards where the boy pointed, the air thick with dust and sweat. Bravery became their armor. They climbed forward through fallen debris and chaotic rubble, the weight of their growing purpose radiating. As a beacon.as they moved, laughter and screams faded into memories, but hope began anew, swirling in the dust. The spirit of Maplewood was rising from the wreckage, strengthened by love, intertwined by hope. Courage surged in Sarah's heart, entwined with the struggles they faced. It was this unity that would carry them through the tumult, bridge the divide, and ultimately transform their small town. A sudden crash echoed from nearby, but it sounded far off, as though reality itself was shying away from the power of community blossoming in front of them. Sarah locked eyes with Henry. They shared the unspoken knowledge that they were on the brink of something monumental. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead. Together, they would rebuild. Together, they were unstoppable, and perhaps, just perhaps, it would lead them to uncover who they truly were and what love could conquer. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. And, please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.